Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, wow, response. I'm Marion Wrightington, the chairman of the Attleboro Historical Commission, and on behalf of the commission and myself, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight. Could you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are here to celebrate the people in our community who make an effort to preserve our historical assets and prove that history is alive in Attleboro. The Massachusetts State Historical Commission started this program over 30 years ago to honor any preservation activity across the nation. We recognize and honor you in the hope of inspiring others to do the same. This year we have a young man with us to help us out, Aiden Lancaster. Would you come up, Aiden? He's a senior at Attleboro High School, vice president of his class, member of the Student Council, the National Honor Society, the Student Advisory Committee, and he even found time to play soccer all 4 years. Aiden will now read the mayor's proclamation.
A proclamation. Historic Preservation Week, May 12th to May 18th, 2019. Whereas National Historic Preservation Week 2019 is co-sponsored by the National Trust for Historic Preservation and local organizations such as the Attleboro Historical Commission, and whereas preservation and rehabilitation have contributed to the social and economic well-being of our cities and towns by increasing the tax base, decreasing crime, and providing additional housing opportunities for low and moderate income households. And whereas preservation makes good financial sense as it creates opportunities for private investment in historic districts and neighborhoods, as well as enhancing public investment in streets, squares, parks, and playgrounds. Now, therefore, I, Paul Heroux, Mayor of the City of Attleboro, do hereby proclaim May 12th through May 18th of 2019 to be Historic Preservation Week in the City of Attleboro, and call upon all citizens to recognize the importance of preserving and rehabilitating our public and private buildings and homes for the future of our city. Signed and sealed 13th of May in the year 2019, Paul Heroux, Mayor.
Aiden, this is for you. Thank you very much. We love to involve a student in our ceremonies every year. We have to get the young people involved in our history. So he just told me he's going to High Point University in the fall, and he's probably going to have a double major in political science and, what was the other thing? Economics. So, congratulations. Next, we have another guest who would like to say a few words. It's our own Honorable Mayor, Paul Heroux.
Thank you, Marion. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Not yet. I'll just try and shout then. That might do it. Good afternoon, good evening. It's really nice to see everybody here today. First thing I'd like to do is recognize Mayor Dumas, who is here tonight. It's nice to have you back in Sadler Hall, Mayor Dumas. And here we are tonight recognizing history. I think one of the nicest quotes I've ever heard was from, and I think I said this last year as well, but I always remember this, when John Quincy Adams said, "Who we are is who we were." And I think that's really important for any sense of identity, because who we identify with as an individual, as a community, as a society, is largely based on who we were. And that's the importance of history. A lot of people might not recognize that as they're younger. I know when I was in Mr. Bonneville's history class, Mr. Bonneville was my 10th grade history teacher. It was interesting stuff, but even back then as a youth, I didn't fully appreciate the importance of the lessons that he was teaching. It was only as I became older I really appreciated history. Now I live in a house that was built in 1790, and the oldest thing in the house is a map from 1770. It's a real antique. The whole house is filled with historical memorabilia from all over the world, places I've traveled. So, I think that all of you here tonight preserving the history of this local community, Attleboro, is tremendously important. And to the Attleboro Historical Society and the Attleboro Historical Preservation Commission. To both organizations, thank you for the work you guys do. With this, I'll turn it back over to Marion. Thank you.
This is the 20th year the Commission has given these awards. Attleboro is so rich in cultural heritage and history that it's a pleasure to ask for the nominations and then commend and acknowledge those who strive to restore and preserve. In the 20 years that we've done this, we've given out over 200 awards. And this year, like all years, we had a lot of nominations. And as always, we make you all winners. Each will receive a framed certificate, a copy of Mr. Studley's history, tricentennial poster, a small set of maps, and a historic site guide, but you can all have one of those when you go down for refreshments. The first 7 I'm going to group together. They're all buildings that have been restored to enhance their original architecture, and they've created beautiful homes for themselves and made Attleboro better for everyone. These are the pictures. When I call your names, you can please come up, and if you'd like to say a few words, feel free. And I'm going to try and remember to point to the picture so that you can know what I'm talking about. So, our first one is Eamon MacIntyre, and it's this one right here, and I think he's not here, but his brother Paul was supposed to come to accept the award for him. This is an 1895 Queen Anne mansion. It's next door to Weather Lanes, if any of you are trying to place it. It has retained many of its original features, including a 3rd-floor balcony. I even had a picture of the balcony. Scallop shingles and stained glass windows. It was owned by Charles Bushy. His 2 brothers, Albert and Solon, lived close by, and all were in the jewelry industry. The new owner has done a great job bringing it back with its bright yellow paint. And it even has those roofline adornments that they had on Victorian houses. So it's very nice.
Thank you very much.
I'll take one of these.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is Joseph Solis and Dave Sargut. I think I murdered those names, but anyway. 234 County Street, and that is right here. This is a 1915 Tudor revival, and they tried to emulate the character of the Tudor period. This house makes a grand statement, it really does. The tall chimney and enclosed porch give it an English look. Alvaro French was a powerful jewelry magnate, member of the school committee, actually, and he was even on the city building committee when the new high school was built in 1914, so I thought that was interesting to mention tonight with all of the new high school stuff going on. That was actually the old Brennan, that high school. It really stands out in its different style, and your grounds are beautiful. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The next one needs no introduction. Kevin Dumas, 214 County Street. Kevin's house right here. Built in 1895, this Queen Anne cottage is one of many found around the city. This one has cross gables and one-story rectangular bay window and a simple corner porch. Built by Charles Obrist, he was a partner in the Attleboro Automobile Company, which was the only one of the few garages doing repairs on cars, because there weren't that many cars around, I guess, back then. Kevin not only restored the bay window with copper, but also built a replica carriage house for his garage.
Thank you.
Thank you. William Keller, 333 South Main Street. Oh, can you see it? And this is this one right here. One of the early fine colonial homes. This was built about 1750. Reverend Peter Thatcher was the first minister of the Second Congregational Church, and he was in that pulpit for 41 years. The house stayed in the family for 200 years. It was an important survivor of Attleboro's 18th century past, and we were thrilled when it was sold to a contractor who wanted to rehab it instead of tearing it down. And they kept the original character, and we were very pleased. Richard Brando Lee, 58 Bank Street. And that one's right here. Built around 1877, this Italianate home with its gabled end to the street, unadorned windows, and entry door with side lights to the floor. This was Elijah Capron's house. He was the deputy sheriff, auctioneer, collector, and justice of the peace. The present owner, Mr. Brandoli, has done a great job with the fresh paint, and he has wonderful plans for the inside. I had a tour the other day, so thank you.
Thank you.
John LaCroix, 571 Newport Avenue. One of two twin double Queen Anne homes with very symmetrical facades to indicate their function as a double house. Built about 1890, probably owned by the Sadler brothers. Oh, I didn't point to it. It's this one right here. It was probably owned by the Sadler brothers, who produced celluloid goods and novelties. It was very common for manufacturers back then to own the nearby houses. This home has been updated, but it's kept all of its original look, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Could I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say that, oh, okay. I just wanted to say that as she mentioned, the twin of the house is right next to it. And my father, Horace LaCroix, did not buy that house for whatever reason, but my mother was a Sadler, and she grew up in what is now the Victorian Mansion, or the Silva House now in South Attleboro. And it has certainly changed a great deal, but I have to say that Madeline McNeely and I have worked very hard on that and have done some great things on the roof and the front porch, so thank you very much for recognizing it.
Well, thank you for doing it. We just love anybody that preserves Attleboro's history. The next one is not actually a private home. It's this one right up here. The Attleboro Land Trust. Charlie Adler, you want to come up? Included in the Deborah and Roger Richardson Nature Preserve on Wilmar Street is this 18th century Barrows House. It's one of the oldest houses in Attleboro. The Land Trust has organized many volunteers, including a group from Johnson & Johnson Company, who sent many volunteers who primed and painted the whole house. The Land Trust is doing everything they can to bring the house back for a new and productive use. Last year, we gave them an award just for the grounds, because the grounds down there are just magnificent. And this year, it's for the house. So, thank you. And I know you want to say a few words.
Well, I had a list of people I was going to cite, but I will just keep my remarks very brief. I just will talk about maybe some of the ways in which this has been a community effort and some of the kinds of interests and skills that have come to bear on this project. We did acquire the property and the house 3 years ago. It was many more years in the negotiations. One key aspect, of course, was the contributions that were received from many donors in large and small amounts, and I'm sure many of those donors are represented here, and I thank you for that. There were people who helped us with figuring out how to protect some of the artifacts that we found in the house that came from the historic preservation community in Attleboro. There were family members who came forward. I will mention their names. Karen Hito was the granddaughter of Ina Evelyn Pond, who was born in the house, the Barrows House, in 1895, and was the last of a continuous chain of family members who had lived in the house since 1708. There was the late Linda Bryn Sensorio, whose parents, John and Alice Bryn, had bought the house from the Barrows chain of family members in 1956 and lived in it till 1960, and Linda lived in that house. There are the people who have helped us with historical research to flesh out the entire story of who has lived and found their livelihoods on the property, which for the land trust just gives it so much more depth of interest than any other property we've ever acquired, because there's a human story that we can attach to the land. And then many people helped with preserving the exterior of the house, in addition to what Marion mentioned. Some other folks helped with some very tedious and dirty work in scraping the paint off the house and bringing it up to a state of good appearance on the outside, at least for now. So again, on behalf of the Land Trust, thank you very much.
So that's it for our buildings. Now for the people and projects. This next one is for Evelyn Silva, and she's resting at home tonight. She didn't feel she could make it. She's getting an Individual Lifetime Achievement Award. Evelyn receives this designation in honor of her unwavering commitment to promote, teach, research, and care for the history of our community, and for the generations of citizens she has known and inspired. Her dedicated fight to save and restore our 1840 Academy, and her drive to promote and sustain the Attleboro Historic Preservation Society has been unsurpassed. She was a principal and a teacher at many of our schools, and her standards of loyalty, leadership, support, and vision were constant and invaluable. So, Evelyn, if you're watching TV tonight, here's a big hug for you and congratulations. Our next one is Ellen Parker, and she's here. Ellen has been a member of our commission for over 26 years. She is moving on to help the city in other ways. Her outstanding community service is deserving of recognition, and we praise you for your enthusiasm for preserving Attleboro's history. From taking notes at our meetings to your huge commitment to preserve Muggsville School, you have always accomplished your goals. And Ellen's father became an at-large city councilor the year she was born, and he served the city for 13 years. So I think you could say that Ellen was born into serving the city of Attleboro.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. That it's really an honor to receive this after serving for quite a few years, and I really have enjoyed my time on the Historical Commission, as well as the folks that I have served with both throughout the years and currently. And those folks don't often get recognized. So hopefully the people that are on the Historical Commission right now, would you just stand and just let people see who you are? Because I don't think people get to see them. Hi. So thank you to all of the people that are continuing to serve. And I look forward, and I'm not going anywhere. I look forward to serving and continuing to pursue my love of historic preservation, Attleboro, as I continue to just do other things as well. So thank you so much. And I just one other little clarification. My dad was a city councilor, but he served 12 years, 13 years. He was serving before I was born. He was serving back in the 60s, and the dates are actually on the podium, so if anyone wants to look at, because this is in memory of him, as is the seal, so I am very proud of that. And he did serve 2 stints, and I miss him, and he did a lot for the city. Thank you.
I must have had her birth date wrong, because I did take the dates from off the front for him. Anyway, okay, wellhead number 1 at Orr's Pond. Mark Ethia, Mike Herter, Dick Potter, and Brian French. Okay. Where's Dick? Oh, there he is. Back in 1992, the Massachusetts Historical Commission declared this wooden octagonal pump house, it's right here, that it was eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. 4 years ago, the cupola appeared to be leaning a little bit, so the city got some quotes to see about that, but then other projects needed the money. So finally, with the help of some civic-minded volunteers and a lot of perseverance, it's all shored up again, and it's still tipped a little bit, but it's all shored up, so it's going to last a long time. So we really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
It's just great when we have citizens step up and do volunteer work, and these guys put in so many hours, it was unbelievable.
Well, you know what they say, what's the best nation? Donation.
Very good.
And I'll just say, I only carry the tools for these guys. Amazing craftsmen, the dedication they put in week after week in all kinds of weather, absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, the next one is the restoration of the Civil War monument. Frank Cook and any other members of that committee that were working on that, come on up. And this is the picture of the monument right over here. This monument was a tribute to the more than 400 Attleboro soldiers who fought in the Civil War. Dedicated in 1908 and placed in the center of town, it's 35 feet high, made of smooth Quincy granite with 3 bronze figures. It was moved to Capron Park in 1928, and the committee worked for years to raise the money to have it restored, and it was a labor of love, I'm sure. It looks great, and it has a long life ahead. So, this is for the committee. Okay. So thank you so much. St. John the Evangelist Church, Father Chris Peschel, and anyone else that's here that worked on that project, if you want to come up. Built around 1931, this late Gothic revival church is one of Attleboro's most beautiful sacred buildings. It was just being completed when the building it was to replace burned down. The Great West Window was executed by Charles Connick, who was an internationally known stained glass craftsman. The parishioners raised $1.5 million to replace the slate roof, repoint the exterior, repaint the interior, and it's just a great job of preserving a gorgeous church. Thank you very much. You want to say something? Sure.
I just want to offer a word of thanks to all the parishioners of St. John's that stepped forward for this project. It's an honor to receive this award from the Attleboro Historic Society. Not bad for a kid that grew up in Taunton. But I was happy to kind of spearhead this project, and I wouldn't be able to do it without a great team. Bob Barton, who was the project manager of Parishioner of St. John's, Scott Winkler, an Attleboro resident who is a historic preservation architect, and Ben of BCI, who orchestrated the entire replacement of the slate roof of St. John's Church, as well as Jim Curry, who worked on the stone, and Ray Levesque, who is just this week finishing up the repainting of the interior of this church. And it's not as old as many people think it is, only from the 1930s, but it will be here for many, many more years, thanks to the dedicated work that everyone put in. Thank you.
And last but not least, the cleanup of the Dodge family burial ground by Friends of the 10 Mile. Ben Cody is representing that group. And your wife. This is a fine group of volunteers. They've worked on a lot of different projects along the 10 Mile River, and this isn't the first time that they've worked on the Dodgeville Dodge Island Cemetery, sorry. They remove the trash and the brush and that thereby expose hidden stones, and they really deserve a lot of recognition.
Sure. On behalf of Friends of the 10 Mile, I'd like to thank you for this honor. It's not why we do it, but the recognition is nice. And thank you to all the volunteers that came and helped us for the 3 cleanups that we've done. And we have more to come. Thanks.
Ben is a good friend, has become a good friend. I was involved with the formation of watershed preservation in the 90s. It coincided with the formation of the Attleboro Land Trust. So I have a little background history in that regard. And we have seen a lot of water go over the dam as far as preserving open space and maintaining an interest in the viability of our watershed. Ben was a school student when he came to us in the earlier part of the watershed movement here in Attleboro, the modern watershed movement. Ben's mom would bring him up from Pawtucket to participate here in Attleboro in river functions, and he was dogmatic about it. And it wasn't planned that way, but I found myself being a mentor to a young man. And that mentorship, if you will, has turned into, I would say, a lifelong friendship. And I think the world of Ben. And I would ask you to, when he's asking for help here with the watershed, be good to him, be kind to him, and help him. Give him a hand. He deserves it. Thank you.
So those are our winners. All of these people and projects are so deserving of recognition, and our historical assets are deserving of preservation. Preservation needs to be one of our priorities. We have to find new uses for our old buildings. So far, Attleboro's doing a good job. And I say this list every year, but I really think that it needs to have attention brought to it. The first mayor's house is the Literacy Center. The old fire station is the Senior Center. Bliss School and Hebron Mill are beautiful housing complexes. The old post office has 4 different uses. And the Armory is recreation for the kids. So our parks and the common are all looking great, so there's hope. And there is hope that history is alive in Attleboro. So along those lines, I'm going to bring up Rachel Killian from the Attleboro Historic Preservation Society, and she's going to tell you about an upcoming event.
All right, it's between me and the cookies, so I'm going to go quick. This year, the Historic Preservation Society has a different event. Typically, we do an annual house tour, and this year we decided to invite the public into some of the core historic buildings in the Uptown area. So we're calling the program Inside Uptown. It's June 1st from 10 to 2, and we have a corridor of buildings from City Hall down to the Literacy Center that are going to have their doors open and allow people in the old entryways kind of point out some of the older parts of the building and give chance to families. Typically the house tour wasn't available to young people, and so we're asking you to bring your grandchildren, your children, take a walk through yourselves. Maybe it's been a long time since you entered through the main door of the public library. The Academy building will be open for you to peep in the doors and see what we are working towards preserving. So this is a fundraiser for the Academy, for the Preservation Society. The YMCA will have their old front door open. The Masonic Temple will be open. The Literacy Center, the library, Centenary Church, where am I down the street? The Bronson Building rooftop will be open. We'll have a display in the Bates Opera House windows, the Kirkyard and the Second Congregational Church through the arches. The front of the Registry of Deeds, the old post office, will be open, and the City Hall will be, missed the Industrial Museum, sorry, I was going down the street. The Industrial Museum will be open, and then our last anchor will be City Hall. So we hope you can join us on June 1st, 10 to 2. Ooh, and in conjunction with that, there will also be the farewell program at the County Street School, high school, Brennan, old, new high school, whatever name you're giving it. They're also doing their farewell program that day, so that will be open for you to visit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'd like to take just a minute to thank all of the members of the Historical Commission. They're a great group. They put in a lot of hours. They're very dedicated to Attleboro's history, so thank you very much to all of you. And there's a vacancy right now for an alternate member on the commission, so if anyone is interested, you can see me later. So congratulations to our winners. Keep up the good work. Thank you all for coming, and please join us down the hall for refreshments. And the other posters from the first 19 years are also on display all the way down in the hall. Thank you.